They were supposed to be warriors. Every cub born to their species carried the blood of hunters in their veins. They stood 7 feet tall when fully grown. Their silver fur was thick enough to stop a knife. Their claws could tear through metal like paper. For 10,000 years, they had been the most feared soldiers in the galaxy. Other species told stories about them to scare their children at night. But on Outpost 17, at the very edge of known space, there lived 6 cubs who were afraid of everything. Was the eldest at 12 cycles old. He was tall for his age, with dark silver fur and eyes the color of amber. He should have been leading hunting parties by now. He should have been training for war. Instead, he spent his nights checking the airlock seals over and over again. 7 times, always 7 times. If he did not check them 7 times, he could not sleep. He would lie awake imagining the seals breaking, the air rushing out, his siblings floating away into the cold darkness of space. His sister was 11 cycles old. She had lighter fur than her brother, almost white in certain light, and she was clever with machines. She could fix almost anything on the station. But when the alarm sounded, even for simple drills, her body would freeze completely. She could not move. She could not think. She would stand like a statue until someone came to shake her out of it. The other called her broken. Was 10 cycles old, and he had never extended his claws in combat. Not once. Every cub learned to fight before they learned to read. It was their way. But when the trainers came at with practice weapons, he would curl into himself. He would cover his face with his paws. He would whimper like a newborn. His claws stayed hidden inside his fingers, and no amount of shouting or threatening could make them come out. The twins, Juno and were 9 cycles old. They looked exactly alike, down to the small white patch on their left ears. They had been born holding paws, and they had never really let go. They spoke only to each other, and only in whispers. If an adult tried to talk to them, they would press together and stare at the floor. Some people thought they could read each other's minds. The truth was simpler and sadder. They were just too scared to talk to anyone else. And then there was the youngest at 8 cycles old. He was small for his age, with fur that stuck up in odd directions no matter how much he groomed it. He was afraid of the dark. He was afraid of loud noises. He was afraid of strangers, of new foods, of closed doors, of open doors, of being alone, and of being in crowds. At night, he would crawl into whichever sibling's bed was closest and press himself against their warmth. He had not slept alone since he was 4 cycles old. Together, the 6 of them were considered the greatest shame of their generation. The High Command did not know what to do with them. Killing them was not allowed. Their species had strict laws about protecting their young, no matter how weak, but keeping them on was impossible. Every day they remained was an insult to the proud warrior families who had raised proper cubs. Every day they breathed was a reminder that sometimes, despite all the breeding programs and all the training and all the ancient bloodlines, nature produced something wrong. So the High Command sent them away. Outpost 17 sat on the border between space and the empty regions beyond. Nothing ever happened there. No battles, no raids, no glory. It was a place for forgotten equipment and forgotten people, the perfect place to hide 6 forgotten cubs. Commander was put in charge of them. He was old, with gray streaking through his once black fur, and he had given up on ambition long ago. He had been a soldier once, a good one, but that was many cycles in the past. Now he just wanted to finish his service and retire to a quiet moon somewhere. When he first saw the cubs, standing in a frightened cluster on the docking bay, he felt nothing but tired disappointment. "These are them," he asked the officer who delivered them. "These are them." Looked at, who was already glancing nervously at the airlock. He looked at, who had gone still at the sound of a distant alarm. He looked at the twins, at Little, who was hiding behind his biggest brother's legs. "What am I supposed to do with them?" The officer shrugged. "Keep them alive, keep them out of the way, that is all." So that was what Commander did. He gave them their own section of the station, far from the small crew of adults who maintained the outpost. He assigned them basic duties: cleaning, inventory, simple repairs. He did not try to train them anymore. What was the point? They were broken things, and broken things could not be fixed. The cubs built their own small world in that forgotten corner of the station. They had their routines, checked the seals every night, fixed things that broke, helped with inventory because it was quiet and safe. The twins whispered to each other about everything they saw, and followed his siblings like a shadow, never more than arm's reach from at least one of them. They were not happy, but they were not miserable either. They had accepted what they were: failures, defects, cubs who would never grow into proper warriors. It was easier to accept it than to fight against it. Then one day, Commander called them to the main hall. They came slowly, nervously, bunched together as they always were, stood at the front of the room with a data tablet in his paws. His face showed nothing, but his ears were slightly forward. That meant news. That meant change. The cubs did not like change. "A human is coming," said without any introduction. "An exchange officer, a scientist. She will be here for 6 months to study you." The cubs said nothing. They did not know what to say. "Humans are strange creatures," continued. "They have no claws, no fangs, no armor. They are soft and small, and they break easily. But they have spread across half the galaxy somehow, so they must be dangerous in ways we do not understand. You will be careful around this human. You will be polite. You will not embarrass me or this station. Do you understand?" 6 heads nodded slowly. That night the cubs gathered in their sleeping quarters. The room was dim, lit only by the soft blue glow of the emergency strips along the floor. Was already pressed against the side, his ears flat with worry. "What is a human?" he asked in a small voice. "A predator," said. He had read about them in the station's database. "They hunt, they fight, they conquered many worlds." "But they are soft," said. "The commander said they are soft." "Soft things can still hurt you," whispered. "Poison is soft, fire is soft." The twins looked at each other, having a conversation without words. Then Juno spoke, which was rare enough to make everyone listen. "We should hide from it." Nodded. "We should hide from it." Looked at his siblings. He was the eldest. He was supposed to protect them. He was supposed to be brave, but he was not brave. He had never been brave. All he could do was keep them together and keep them safe, and right now that meant keeping them away from the strange, soft creature that was coming to their home. "We will be careful," he said. "We will watch. We will hide if we need to. The human is only here for 6 months. We can survive 6 months." Made a small sound of fear. What if it tries to hurt us? Did not have an answer for that. None of them did. So they sat together in the dark. 6 frightened cubs waiting for something they did not understand, and they hoped that whatever was coming would leave them alone. The human was coming in 7 days. 7 days until everything changed. The supply shuttle arrived on a gray morning. Park stood at the small window of the ship, watching Outpost 17 grow larger against the black emptiness of space. It was an ugly station, old, worn, the kind of place that had been forgotten by everyone who mattered. She had read the reports about it during her journey. Minimal crew, basic equipment, nothing special. Except for the 6 cubs who lived there. Was 31 years old. She had brown eyes and black hair that she kept tied back in a simple knot. She was not tall. She was not strong. She had never fired a weapon in her life. She was a scientist. Her job was to study alien species and understand how they thought, how they grew, how they became who they were. The cubs of Outpost 17 were supposed to be her greatest research project. According to her briefing materials, they were developmental anomalies, cubs who had failed to develop normal aggression and confidence. The high command considered them defective, broken, useless, but did not believe in useless children. She believed that every young mind had potential. She believed that fear was not a permanent condition. She believed she could help them. She had no idea what she was really walking into. The shuttle landed with a gentle bump. gathered her 2 bags and her research tablet and walked down the ramp into the docking bay. The air smelled like metal and recycled oxygen. The lights were dim. Everything felt tired and old. Commander was waiting for her. He was a large with graying fur and eyes that showed no warmth. He looked at her the way someone might look at a piece of furniture they had not ordered. "Lieutenant Park," he said, "welcome to Outpost 17. "Thank you, Commander. I am very excited to begin my research." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The cubs are not exciting. They are barely functional, but you may study them if you wish. They are in the East Wing. I will have someone show you to your quarters." "Can I meet them now?" "You can try." Did not understand what he meant until she walked into the East Wing. The corridor was empty. The common room was empty. The sleeping quarters, when she peeked inside, were empty too, but she could feel something, a presence, eyes watching her from somewhere she could not see. "Hello," she called out. "My name is, I am not here to hurt anyone. I just want to meet you." Silence. She heard a soft clicking sound behind her, claws on metal. When she turned around, there was nothing there. But a ventilation grate near the ceiling was swinging slightly, as if something had just crawled through it. They were hiding from her, all 6 of them, hiding from a creature half their size with no claws and no fangs. Felt her heart squeeze with something that was not quite sadness. It was more like recognition. She had been afraid like that once. She remembered what it felt like. For the first 3 days, she did not push. She moved into her quarters. She set up her research equipment. She walked through the station at regular times, following the same routes, making herself predictable. Predictable was safe. Predictable was not scary. She saw glimpses of them sometimes. A silver tail vanishing around a corner. A pair of amber eyes watching from a high place. The sound of whispered voices that went quiet when she came near. They were curious about her. She could tell. But their fear was stronger than their curiosity. On the 4th day, she changed her approach. She stopped looking for them. Instead, she went to the observation lounge, a small room with a wide window that looked out at the stars. She sat in a comfortable chair. She made herself a cup of tea from her personal supplies, and she pulled out a book. It was a real book, paper pages, a physical object. She had brought it from Earth because it reminded her of her grandmother, who used to read to her when she was small and scared of the world. Opened the book and began to read out loud. Her voice was soft and steady. She read about a girl who lived in a small house at the edge of a great forest. The girl was afraid of the forest because she did not know what lived inside it. But one day, she had to go into the forest to find medicine for her sick mother. So she went, even though she was scared, and she discovered that the forest was full of wonderful things she had never imagined. Read for an hour, then 2 hours. She did not look around. She did not try to see if anyone was listening. She just read. On the 3rd hour, she heard a small sound, the creak of a ventilation grate opening. She kept reading. The sound came closer, soft breathing, the whisper of fur against metal. Still she read. When she finally finished the chapter and looked up, she saw a small silver ear poking through the ventilation grate behind her chair. Just an ear, nothing else, but it was pointed toward her, listening. "Did you like the story?" she asked gently. The ear vanished. But the next day, when she came back to read, the ear appeared again, and this time she could see a small face behind it, young, frightened, curious despite the fear. The youngest one smiled at him, just a small smile, and went back to reading. This became their routine. Every day would sit in the observation lounge and read out loud. Every day would appear in the ventilation grate to listen. He never came out. He never spoke, but he kept coming back. After a week, started leaving small treats near the grate. Sweet dried fruits from Earth. Nothing special, just a small gift. The first time, the treats sat untouched for hours, but when she came back the next morning, they were gone. The second time, They vanished while she was reading. The third time she heard a tiny voice say, "Thank you." His heart nearly burst with joy, but she kept her voice calm. "You are welcome. Would you like to sit with me?" A long pause, then, "I am scared." "That is okay. You can be scared and sit with me at the same time. I will not do anything scary, I promise." Another long pause, the longest pause yet. Then slowly, carefully, a small cub crawled out of the ventilation grate. He was the size of a large dog, with messy silver fur and big golden eyes. His ears were flat against his head. His whole body was shaking. But he came. He sat on the floor next to his chair, not quite touching her, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. She did not try to pet him or hug him or make any sudden moves. She just picked up her book and started reading again. After a few minutes, the shaking stopped. After a few more minutes, leaned against the side of her chair. And after the chapter ended, he looked up at her with those big golden eyes and asked, "Will you read more tomorrow?" "Yes," said, "I will read every day if you want me to." Nodded slowly. Then he climbed back into the ventilation grate and disappeared. But he came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. And one morning, a week later, he brought his siblings with him. They came slowly, one by one, crawling out of the walls like shy ghosts. First, because he was the eldest and he had to make sure it was safe. Then the twins together. They arranged themselves in a half-circle around his chair, keeping their distance, watching her with wary eyes. Looked at them, 6 frightened children, 6 small souls who had been told their whole lives that they were broken, wrong, worthless. She smiled at them, warm and real and full of something that felt like hope. "Hello," she said. Would you like to hear a story?" 6 heads nodded and began to read. The change happened slowly, like sunrise. Did not push the cubs. She did not make demands. She did not tell them to be braver or stronger or better. She simply existed among them, soft and patient, and let them come to her when they were ready. Was always the first. He would appear at her door in the morning, his fur still messy from sleep, asking if she wanted company for breakfast. At first they ate in her quarters, just the 2 of them. Then started joining. Then the twins. Soon all 6 cubs were eating meals within the small kitchen near her room, and the mess hall where the adult crew ate was left empty. Commander did not care. As long as the cubs stayed out of his way, he was happy. Learned about each of them during those meals. She learned that was not just scared. He was worried. He carried the weight of his siblings on his shoulders, always watching for danger, always planning for the worst. His 7 checks of the airlock every night were not madness. They were love, desperate, frightened love. She learned that freezing was not weakness. It was her body trying to protect itself from something too big to fight. When she was calm, was brilliant. She could take apart a broken machine and put it back together better than before. Her paws were steady and sure when she was working on something she understood. She learned that was not a coward. He was gentle. The idea of hurting anything, even in practice, made him sick to his stomach. In a species of warriors, he had been born with the heart of a healer. She learned that Juno and were not strange. They simply understood each other so well that they did not need words. Their silence was not a wall. It was a bridge that only they could walk across. And she learned that the youngest and most afraid had the biggest heart of all. He noticed everything. He remembered everything. He worried about everyone. His fears came from caring too much about a universe that seemed too dangerous for the ones he loved. 2 months into her assignment, the solar flare hit. It came without warning, as solar flares often did. One moment the station was running normally. The next moment the primary power grid failed. The lights went out. The emergency alarm screamed. Red warning lights flashed in every corridor, casting strange shadows on the walls. Was in her quarters when it happened. She grabbed a flashlight and ran toward the east wing, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew where the cubs would be. She knew what they would be feeling. She found them in a storage closet. They were piled together in the corner, a mass of silver fur and trembling bodies. Was crying, high keening sounds that broke her heart. Had gone rigid, her eyes empty, her body locked in place. Was trying to hold everyone together, but his own fear was shaking him apart. Dropped to her knees beside them. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey, it is okay, I am here." 6 pairs of golden eyes looked at her through the darkness. In the red emergency light, they looked like frightened animals. "The station is dying," whispered. "We are going to die." "No, we are not. It is just a power outage. The backup systems will fix it. The engineers are already working on it. Listen." She cupped a hand to her ear. "Hear that humming? That is the backup generator. The station is fine. We are fine." "But the alarms," Juno said. "The alarms are loud," agreed. "Yes, they are very loud, but loud is just noise. Noise cannot hurt you. It can only scare you, and being scared is okay. Being scared does not mean something bad is happening. It just means your body is being careful." Pulled out her flashlight and clicked it on. Warm yellow light filled the closet, pushing back the red shadows. "See, we can make our own light. We do not have to sit in the dark." Sniffled. "You are not scared." Laughed softly. "I am terrified. My heart is beating so fast right now. But I learned something a long time ago when I was young like you. Being brave does not mean you are not scared. Being brave means you do what needs to be done even when you are scared." She settled herself against the wall, making herself comfortable. "Let me tell you a story. When I was 7 years old, there was a big storm on Earth, thunder and lightning. The power went out in my house just like this. I was so scared that I hid under my bed and cried for hours." The cubs were listening now. Evan's eyes had returned to focus. "My grandmother found me under the bed. She crawled under there with me, even though she was old and it hurt her knees. And she told me that the storm was just the sky being loud. It was not trying to hurt me. It was just doing what storms do. And she stayed with me until the storm passed." Smiled at the memory. "I was still scared of storms for a long time after that. But I learned that I could be scared and still be okay. I learned that having someone with you makes the scary things smaller. And I learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just wait for the storm to pass." The alarm stopped. The cubs jumped at the sudden silence. Then the main lights flickered back on, warm and steady. The red emergency lights faded away. "See," said, "storm is over." Launched himself at her, wrapping his small arms around her neck. She caught him, surprised, and felt his whole body shaking against hers. "Thank you," he whispered into her shoulder. "Thank you for staying." One by one, the other cubs moved closer, touched his arm gently, sat beside her. The twins pressed against her other side. And the eldest, the protector, looked at this soft human creature who had crawled into a dark closet to comfort his siblings. He did not understand her. Humans were supposed to be dangerous. They were supposed to be predators. But this one read them stories. This one brought them treats. This one sat in the dark with them and said it was okay to be scared. "You are strange," he said, "for a predator." Raised an eyebrow at him. "Humans are not predators. We are just very stubborn animals who get attached to things. Right now, I am attached to 6 cubs who need someone to tell them that they are not broken." She looked around at all of them. "You are not broken, do you hear me? There is nothing wrong with being scared. There is nothing wrong with being gentle or quiet or careful. Those are not weaknesses. Those are different kinds of strength. The universe needs all kinds of strength, not just the kind that fights." The cubs stared at her. No one had ever said anything like that to them before. Felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. It was hope. Small and fragile, like a newborn thing, but real. "You really believe that?" he asked. "I know it," said, "and I am going to prove it to you, all of you. I am going to show you that you can be scared and still be brave. You can be gentle and still be strong. You can be exactly who you are and still matter." She held out her hand to him, an offer, a promise. Looked at that soft, clawless hand. In his whole life, no one had ever offered him anything except disappointment and shame. But this human, this strange, soft creature, was offering him something new. She was offering him belief. He took her hand. And in that moment, in a storage closet on a forgotten station at the edge of space, something began. Something that would change all of them. Something that would become a family. The cubs did not know it yet, neither did. But the universe was about to learn what happened when frightened children found someone worth protecting. The pirates came without warning. 3 months had passed since arrived at Outpost 17. 3 months of stories and meals and slow, careful healing. The cubs were different now. They still had their fears, but those fears no longer controlled them. They laughed sometimes. They explored parts of the station they had never dared to visit before. They were beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were not broken after all. It was evening when the attack began. Was in the cubs' sleeping quarters, reading them a bedtime story about a clever rabbit who outsmarted a hungry fox. Was already half asleep, curled against her side. Was braiding fur. Was drawing pictures on a data pad. Everything was peaceful. Then the whole station shook. The lights went out. Emergency alarms screamed. And through the walls heard a sound that made her blood go cold. Plasma fire. "What is happening?" asked, his voice high with fear. Was already on his feet, his ears turning in every direction. That was a weapons blast. Someone is shooting. Another explosion, closer this time. The station shook again and heard distant shouting, screaming, then silence. She knew what this was. She had read the reports about this sector. Pirate raids. Ships that dropped out of hyperspace without warning, attacked isolated stations, took everything valuable and left no witnesses. Her heart turned to ice in her chest. "Listen to me," she said, and her voice was steady even though her hands were shaking. "We need to move. Now, we are going to the escape pods." But Commander started. "The commander will have to take care of himself. Right now, my job is to take care of you. Service Corridor 7. It leads directly to the pod bay. We move fast. We stay quiet. We do not stop for anything. Do you understand?" The cubs stared at her. They had never seen her like this. Her soft face had gone hard. Her gentle eyes had become sharp. She was not the woman who read them stories anymore. She was something else, something focused, something fierce. "Do you understand?" she asked again. 6 heads nodded. Grabs paw in her left hand and in her right. "Stay behind me. You take the rear. Watch our backs." Something flickered in his eyes. He straightened his spine. His ears went forward. For the first time in his life, someone was asking him to protect, not expecting him to fail, not waiting for him to be afraid, just asking him to do what needed to be done. "Yes," he said, "I will." They moved through the dark corridors like ghosts, led them through service passages that the main crew never used. She had memorized the station layout weeks ago, just in case something like this happened. The sounds of fighting grew louder, then softer, then louder again. They were not alone on the station. The pirates were moving through the corridors, searching for survivors. Halfway to the escape pods stopped. Ahead of them, at the junction of 2 corridors, 3 figures stood in the red emergency light. They were tall, covered in green scales with black eyes and mouths full of sharp teeth. She recognized them from her xenobiology training. Pirate species, raiders, killers. They were armed with plasma rifles, and they were looking right at her. Pushed the cubs behind her. She stood in the corridor, one small human woman facing 3 armed aliens. Her heart was hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her legs were shaking. Everything in her wanted to run. But she could not run. The cubs were behind her. If she ran, they would be caught. If she ran, they would die. So she stood. "Run," the lead hissed in broken common. "Run, and we make death quick." Did not move. The laughed a horrible wet sound. "Stupid mammal, you have no weapons, no claws, no teeth. What can you do? You are soft. You are weak. You are nothing." Maybe said, "But I am not alone." Behind her, something changed. Felt it first, a heat in his chest that he had never felt before. Not fear, something else, something hot and fierce and alive. He looked at this small, soft creature who had no claws, no fangs, no armor. She was standing between them and death. She was shaking with terror, and she was not moving. She was protecting them. Him, his siblings, his family. And suddenly, for the first time in his entire life, understood what courage meant. It did not mean being unafraid. It meant doing what needed to be done even when you were so scared you could barely breathe. He felt something shift inside him, something unlock, something that had been hiding his whole life, waiting for this moment. His claws came out. They slid from his fingers with a soft snick, long and curved and sharp as razors. He stared at them for a moment, surprised. Then he looked up at those who were threatening his big sister. And he snarled. It was not a cub's snarl. It was the sound of a predator. The sound of 10,000 years of warrior blood finally waking up. The sound of a who had found something worth fighting for. Beside him felt it too, the same heat, the same fierce certainty. He looked at his own paws and watched his claws emerge, the claws that had never come out no matter how hard he tried. They came out now. They came out easily, like they had been waiting all along. Unfroze, the paralysis that had trapped her during every alarm, every drill, every moment of danger. It shattered like glass. She could move, she could think, she could fight. The twins looked at each other and nodded. No words needed. They knew what to do. And Little, the youngest, the most afraid, stepped forward and placed himself directly in front of. His small body was shaking. His eyes were wet with tears, but his claws were out and his teeth were bared, and he was not going to let anyone hurt his big sister. The lead stopped laughing. He was looking at 6 cubs who had been cowering behind a human moments ago. Now they stood in a line, silver fur bristling, claws extended, golden eyes blazing with something that looked like fire. "What is this?" he asked. "This," said, "is our family, and you made a mistake." He struck first. Had never seen anything move so fast. One moment was standing beside her. The next moment he was across the corridor, his claws raking across the lead's weapon arm. The plasma rifle clattered to the floor. Followed, hitting the second raider low and hard. The twins worked together, moving like 2 parts of one body, flanking the third and bringing him down before he could fire a shot. Grabbed the fallen plasma rifle and pointed it at the raiders with steady hands. And stood in front of the whole time, small and shaking, and absolutely refusing to move. The fight lasted less than a minute. When it was over, 3 lay groaning on the deck, disarmed and bleeding. 6 cubs stood panting, their silver fur matted with sweat, their claws stained with green blood. Stared at them, her cubs, her frightened, gentle, broken cubs. They had just defeated 3 armed pirates to protect her. Tears started running down her face. "You idiots," she choked. "You could have been killed, you should have run, you should have left me and run." Looked at her with something new in his eyes, something old and deep and unbreakable. "No," he said, "you are our big sister, we protect big sister." "Always," added fiercely, pressing himself against legs. "Always," the twins echoed together. "Always," and said as one. Dropped to her knees and pulled them all close, all 6 of them, hugging them as tight as she could. They were warm and real and alive, and they had just done the bravest thing she had ever seen. "I love you," she whispered. "I love all of you so much." She had come to this station to study them, to write a paper, to advance her career. Instead, she had found a family. And her family had found their courage. The rescue ships arrived 2 hours after the fighting ended. A Galactic Alliance patrol had detected the distress beacon and came to investigate. They found Outpost 17 half destroyed, smoke still rising from the breached sections. They found bodies. They found survivors hiding in sealed compartments. They found the captured pirates, bound and guarded by a small group of cubs who refused to leave their posts. And they found. She was sitting in the corridor outside the escape pods, surrounded by 6 young who had formed a protective circle around her. When the rescue team approached, the cubs growled warnings. Their claws were still out. Their fur was still bristling. They would not let anyone near their big sister until told them it was safe. The patrol commander had seen many strange things in his career, but he had never seen anything quite like this. 6 cubs, the species famous for producing the most fearsome warriors in the galaxy, protecting a single human woman like she was the most precious thing in the universe. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "are you injured?" "I am fine," said. "My cubs are fine. We need medical attention for some cuts and bruises, but nothing serious." "Your cubs?" Smiled at him. It was a tired smile, but a real one. "My cubs, my family. Is there a problem with that?" The commander decided there was not. The official report called the incident an anomalous display of protective aggression in developmentally atypical juveniles. The classified edition noted that the cubs had demonstrated combat effectiveness far beyond what anyone expected. The 6 children who had been considered failures, defects, embarrassments to their bloodlines, had fought like true warriors when it mattered most. The High Command did not know what to do with this information. They called a meeting. They reviewed the evidence. They watched recordings from the station's surviving cameras. They saw first strike, his brave charge, the twins working in perfect harmony, wielding a weapon she had never been trained to use, little standing guard over a creature 3 times his size. They saw everything. And then they called for the cubs. Stood with them in the great hall of the. It was a massive chamber built for giants, filled with the most powerful members of their species, military commanders, clan leaders, politicians and priests, all of them staring at 6 small cubs who had spent their whole lives being told they were worthless. The High Commander spoke first. He was ancient, his fur completely white, his eyes sharp despite his age. "You have done something unexpected," he said. "You have brought honor to yourselves and to your bloodlines. The High Command is prepared to offer you a gift. You may attend the Academy of Warriors. You may train with the best of our species. You may redeem your names and become what you were always meant to be." It was the greatest offer any cub could receive, a chance to erase their shame, a chance to become true warriors, a chance to finally belong. Looked at his siblings, they looked back at him, no words were needed. "No," he said. The hall went silent. "No," the High Commander repeated. "We do not want to attend the academy. We do not want to leave our big sister. We stay with." The High Commander's ears went flat. "She is human. She is not your blood. She is not your pack." Stepped forward. She had spent her whole life freezing when authority figures spoke to her. She did not freeze now. "She taught us something," said. "She taught us that courage is not about being unafraid. It is about protecting the ones you love even when you are terrified. She taught us that being gentle is not weakness. She taught us that we matter, not because we can fight, not because we are fierce. We matter because we are us." Spoke next. "She never asked us to be warriors. She asked us to be brave. There is a difference." The twins spoke together, their voices clear and strong. "She crawled into a dark closet to sit with us during a storm. She read us stories when no one else would talk to us. She stood between us and death when she had no weapons, no claws, nothing but her love for us." And Little walked forward until he was standing directly in front of the most powerful in the galaxy. "She is our big sister," he said. "She is our family, and we will protect her always. If you do not want us because we love a human, then we do not want you either." The hall was completely silent. Was crying again. She seemed to do that a lot lately. But she was also smiling so wide it hurt, because these cubs, these beautiful brave cubs, were choosing her. The High Commander stared at them for a long moment. Then, slowly, something changed in his ancient face. "You have found something rare," he said quietly. "Something our species often forgets in our pursuit of strength. You have found a bond worth dying for, worth living for." He turned to. "You have done something strange here, human. You have taught our children that there is more than one way to be brave." He raised his paw in a formal salute. "Go with our blessing, all of you. You are pack now, true pack, and that is the greatest thing any can be." Years passed. Research assignment became a permanent posting. Then it became something else entirely. The first human-integrated family unit. A strange little pack at the edge of space, living on a rebuilt station that had become a home. The cubs grew up. Became a security consultant. His careful checking of every system, every seal, every potential threat made him perfect for the job. What had once been anxiety became expertise. What had once been fear became wisdom. Joined the Corps. She worked with other frightened young, helping them find their courage the same way it helped her. She never forgot what it felt like to freeze. She used that memory to help others learn to move. Became a medic. His gentle heart, his horror at causing harm, made him perfect for healing. He saved lives on a dozen worlds, and every time he did, he remembered that being gentle was its own kind of strength. Juno and went into intelligence work. Their silent communication, their ability to understand each other without words, made them the best covert team in the Alliance. They were never separated. They never needed to be. And became an ambassador. The frightened little cub who had been afraid of everything grew into a who could talk to anyone. Humans, especially. He understood them in a way that other could not. He had learned from the best of them. He had learned from his big sister. Grew old. Her hair turned gray, her face gained lines, her steps became slower, but she was never alone. Her cubs visited constantly. They brought their own children, their own families, all of them calling her grandmother. One evening, when they had finally gone to sleep and the house was quiet, sat with on the observation deck of her small home. They watched the stars together, the same stars they had watched all those years ago on Outpost 17. "Do you ever regret it?" asked, "staying with us instead of going back to Earth?" Laughed softly. "Never, not for a single moment. You know what I was before I met you. I was lonely. I had my work, my research, my career, but I did not have a family. I did not have anyone who would crawl into a storage closet to sit with me during a storm." She reached over and took his paw, his large silver paw that could still tear through metal but had only ever touched her gently. "You gave me something precious. You gave me a home." His ears went flat, but not from fear, from emotion. "You gave us everything," he said. "You gave us courage, you gave us hope, you gave us the belief that we mattered. You always mattered, you just needed someone to show you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The stars wheeled slowly overhead. Somewhere in the house, made a small sleepy sound. "Big sister," said finally. "Yes. Thank you for everything, for not giving up on us, for teaching us that being scared is okay, for standing between us and death when you had nothing but love." He squeezed her hand gently. "We would do it again, you know, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. We would always protect you." Smiled at him, her oldest cub, her fierce, gentle guardian. "I know," she said. "That is what family does." In the vast darkness of the galaxy, there were many kinds of strength. The strength of claws, the strength of weapons, the strength of armies and fleets and empires. But the greatest strength of all was simpler than any of those. It was the strength of someone who stood in the dark with you when you were afraid. Someone who believed in you when no one else did. Someone who taught you that being scared did not mean you were broken, had given that gift to 6 frightened cubs, and they had given it back to her 1,000-fold. A family forged not by blood, but by love. A pack that would protect each other always. Always.